Welcome to CLIC Connect. I'm your host, Craig Sullivan. We've got another industry leader today, and I'm very excited about this. So is producer Danny. We've got Ryan Minton, who is a author and RVP at TPG Hotels and Resorts. You know what we're going to be talking about, don't you? We're going to be talking about hotels. We're going to be talking about his book. We're going to be talking about leadership. But before we bring Ryan out, I would like to thank Red Roof Franchising and Chicago Title National Commercial Services Group for being a part of this show. Yeah, they've been with us from the beginning, and I thank them very much, along with you, our audience, for joining us today. So with that done, let's welcome Ryan Minton to CLIC Connect. Ryan, how are you?
Good, Craig. Thanks for having me. Good to see you, man.
Good seeing you. And I got to tell you, thank you for the book. Thank you for autographing it. And thank you for the book for producer Danny and autographing hers as well. Great read, great job. But before we delve into the book, would you do me a favor and please tell the audience about yourself, your book, and your company, please?
Yeah, thanks again for having me, Craig. So I'm a hotelier at heart. Currently a regional vice president of operations for TPG Hotels and Resorts. I oversee 10 properties, mostly here in Southeast Florida. I live in Delray Beach, and that's where I call home. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I lived there most of my life. I'm a Midwestern guy, but decided I couldn't take the winters anymore, so I came down to Florida 4 years ago. But throughout my hotel career, I found I was having some success going into properties that were underperforming as it related to customer experience scores and culture problems, employee satisfaction. And I started to find that I kind of had a formula for turning these properties around, and the formula really, to me, it wasn't rocket science. It was really about taking care of employees and really focusing on the employee experience first. And so I ended up writing a book about it, and it's called Thanks for Coming In Today. And I still to this day practice what's in that book, and really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Trust me, it is definitely our pleasure. I love finding a good book. And I'm one of those people, it's very old school. I love the tactile experience of holding it, reading it, dog-earing the pages, yellow highlighter, the whole 9 yards. I should probably own that company, going to school and learning how to use a highlighter properly. I've never stopped. So, marking up a contract is always colorful.
That's right.
Ryan, let's talk about empowering your team and feeling appreciated. I think right now, with labor being the number one issue that the hospitality industry is facing, and let's use a based hospitality term. It's hotels, it's resorts, it's restaurants, it's sports and entertainment. It's a lot of different factors. How do you come into a hotel that may not be hitting on all 8 cylinders and empower your team that you've inherited and get them to know that they are appreciated and feeling appreciated? How do you accomplish that?
Well, it starts at the top. It is so crucial that the general manager embraces these ideas. So in my current role, that's really step one for me, is to ensure that the general manager of the property really embraces this idea of taking care of the employee, and they'll take care of the customer. Um, I tell our general managers all the time, we wear multiple hats. We always have, right, in the hotel industry.
Yeah.
One minute you're, helping a guest with luggage, and the next minute you're checking them in, and then 20 minutes later you might be in your office responding to, an RFP. You just do so many different things in a day, and I think that's why so many of us love the hotel business. Um, Post COVID, more hats than ever. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
even think you can list how many things everyone does in a day, but I really believe that the most important thing anyone does in a hotel, if they have a leadership title, is create an environment where your employees genuinely enjoy coming to work. We
Yes.
have to get that right. If you can
Yep.
get that right, then you can start to build on everything else. And that really does come from the general manager and the leadership, the department heads. Um, I just think that is so crucial to being successful in any business, but especially in the hotel business. Now you've got to be able to create this environment where employees are genuinely excited to wake up in the morning and say, "Wow, I get to go work here."
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a huge part of it. I unfortunately I think we've all had jobs, careers to a degree that may not have been the norm. Um, I have a lot of faith in the millennials and other generations where I'm the tail end of the boomers, okay? And I never fit into that, and I was constantly reminded of that, when I was younger. Uh, but it's there is so much demand on you at a hotel right now, and to keep those Q scores up, to get everything done, and wearing multiple hats. And I don't feel that we, as an industry, have done a very good job about promoting our industry and showing that there's a great career path there, and we've got to get back to that, or this industry is really going to suffer. Um, you know, let's say you're in a good hotel, but there's room for improvement. How do you go from good to great with your team?
It's funny. I actually recently, not long ago, was looking at a hotel's customer service scores, and the scores were not stacking up to the experience that I felt on property, or even what some of the comments were, in the verbatims and on TripAdvisor. So we started to drill into the scores and saw that there was a lot of sevens and eights. Um, Instead of nines and tens. And with most brands, a seven or an eight or lower is the equivalent of a zero. It doesn't count. So this hotel was good, but it wasn't great. And so what we really started to drill in on is, where could we find opportunity to impact the guests so that they wanted to move that seven or eight to a nine or ten. So in your words, from good to great. And really that comes down to the details. That comes down to memorable experiences. What can you do to impact a guest stay so much that they want to talk about it, so much that they want to take that survey and give you the 9 or 10. And a lot of that comes down to personalizing the stay.
Yeah.
I was at a Marriott conference recently, and they focused in on this new phrase I really liked called needs and knows. NEEDS and knows, KNOWS. And it's this idea that most brands, most hotels have a wealth of information on the guest in front of us when they're checking in, but most of us don't take advantage of that intel. And a lot of other industries do a much better job than we have traditionally, and taking the data we have in front of us on a customer and then using it to make their experience better or make it memorable. So I think that was a cool phrase I've recently picked up and started using is focus on the needs and the knows. What do you know about that guest, and what do they need? And then take that information and make it memorable and impact them in a positive way. They're going to have a better experience, and ultimately they're going to reward you with a good survey, but even more importantly, hopefully a return stay and their loyalty to your hotel, to your brand.
Absolutely. I think that's brilliant. It's funny that you bring that up because 100 years ago, I was working with a gentleman who was coming up with a platform that was going to help Fairmont maximize, their President's Club and all the data that they had. And, Fairmont of San Francisco is one of my favorite hotels. It's living history, couldn't be duplicated today. The staff there has always been outstanding. We used to do conferences there, and the best pancakes Oscar in the country, without a doubt.
Wow.
And you can only have 3 because any more than that, you will go into a sugar coma. And they're amazing. But I always thought that we underutilized that, and I think Amazon, capitalized on that. You look at all the things that you get from them perpetually. They know what your shopping habits are. And, as being part of a rewards program, whether it's Hilton, Marriott, IHG, Hyatt, and the rest of, the franchise companies out there, they've got everything on you. They've got your birth date. They've got your cell phone number, got your email address. They know what your likes are at other assets of theirs as well. And there's nothing better than knowing when once you've checked in that everybody in that hotel knows your name.
Hmm.
Everybody,
Hmm.
and it doesn't have to be a destination resort. It could be a Hampton Inn, it could be a Best Western, it could be a Red Roof, it could be anybody. And those little personal touches just mean so much to everybody right now. So I love that phrasing. I'm sure that you're going to be working that into your lectures
Well,
and
listen,
your speaking engagements.
you hit something I want to point out. It's very important. It's um, part of that conversation of wanting to go from good to great is the personalization. Um, it is really when I talk a lot about getting back to the basics.
Yeah,
When I do my keynote, one of my key points I zero in on is um, we cannot take for chance or assume that the employees we hire know what good customer service is. You have to tell them. You have to say what your basic expectations are. Um, when I've worked with companies in the past that have wanted to improve their customer service, I ask the question, what is your basic customer service expectation right now? And most of the time, there is a struggle to answer that question because they have not defined it.
yeah, yeah,
Um, one of the one of the things that I immediately do when I get a new hotel is I roll out what I call my service basics, and a lot of companies do this, but it's so important to make sure that the people on the front lines know that your expectation is to escort instead of point.
right.
Your expectation is that you are going to try to answer the phone within 3 rings and not let it ring 7, 8, 9 times.
Yeah,
Your expectation is that you're going to smile if someone walks past you. The example that I often use, or my favorite basic, is the 20-10 rule, or some people call it the 15-5 rule, which is within 20 feet, as a customer passes by, you should be making some kind of eye contact. And
yeah,
then within 10 feet, you should have some type of verbal exchange, whether it's good morning, good afternoon, how's your day, I like your shirt, whatever.
yeah.
Um, if you that one single basic, if you can implement that today, you will immediately start to see customer perception change about their experience. I use this example, and I won't say the retailer, but most people know what I'm talking about when I say it. But it's a big box retailer that's not known for customer service, that most of us probably go to every now and then. Um, if you were to go into that retailer and every employee within 20 feet made eye contact with you, that alone would be a win, because 9 times out of 10
Yeah,
they're in their phones or they're not paying attention to you.
right.
And then within 10 feet they're saying something to you. How different would that shopping experience feel? So when you're going from good to great, I really think part of that conversation is defining your basic service expectations and making sure everybody knows them.
I couldn't agree more with you. And it's those little things, that quick glance, acknowledgement, that hello, good morning, good afternoon, nice shirt, whatever it may be, you just made somebody's moment. Now, when I was running an office, I'm a big one still under this day for a live operator. Okay,
Mm.
that is, in a lot of instances for an office, that is your first sales contact. And if that person can see your receptionist smiling through the phone at them and knowing that that person is focused on your call, it alleviates anxiety. And
Mhm.
then, that phone call gets to the right destination, and, the hello from the party that you're waiting for, has got to be friendly and all that. So I just love that thinking.
It's
Um,
funny you bring that up. I'll tell you because you asked me about empowerment. So I've got an
yeah,
article coming out in Newsweek. I do write articles for them. So I've got an article coming out next week in Newsweek about empowerment. And the example that I use in the article is along the lines we just talked about. I had an incident with Southwest Airlines a couple weeks ago where my flight was delayed and I missed a meeting. Now, when you have something like that happen, our baseline for customer service in this country is pretty low.
yeah,
So I already assumed when I dialed that 1-800 number, I was going to probably go to battle and I was probably going to have to go through some hoops. I was probably going to have to go through a lot of a lot of people to get to the ultimate resolution. I was blown away when the phone instantly rang to an actual person who immediately heard my concerns, showed empathy, fixed the problem, and oh, by the way, I can understand this was frustrating for you, so let me give you $100 credit. I didn't ask for that. I wasn't expecting that. But what really blew me away to the point where I ended up writing this article about that that experience is really crucial in today's customer expectation, and we don't see it very often. Um, Still blown away that I immediately got a person and they were the only person that I had to talk to. They were empowered to do what they needed to do to make sure that I was happy. And here I am telling you about it. I'm going to write an article about it. That's what loyalty is. And if you got to empower the front line, and I preach this all the time, you got
yep,
to empower the frontline employees to the extent where I say you got to eliminate the phrase out of your building. Let me check with the manager. That phrase makes my skin crawl.
yeah.
Let the folks on the front lines do the job you hired them to do.
Well, and that's it. And and I've got to say that I'm glad that Southwest did that. I'm sure that they had gotten an email blast from
Yep.
somebody and say, "Hey, it's all hands on deck. Everybody's answering the phones.
Mhm.
You're empowered to take care of the traveling public. We just had a meltdown, whatever it may be, instead of everybody ducking for cover, because that doesn't help anybody.
Right.
And yeah, my skin's crawling thinking of the phrase that you just used. I won't
Mhm.
use it. It's just like no.
Yeah.
Uh, it is. It's that it's that pride and ownership and a job well done, taking care of the people that come into our hotels and our resorts. And we're taking responsibility for their safety. We're giving them a good place, secure place to get a night's rest. And there's we've all been into places where the on-site team is great, and you are just happy as can be stepping out of your car on arrival. And I think sometimes some of these places forget that you've got to give them that wow factor right when they pull up. You don't want any type of buyer's remorse. I also don't want wet children from the pool sitting in my lobby, but that's a whole other story. Um, Lead, don't manage. I think that is critical. I think every GM, AGM, DOS, supervisor, they've all got to understand that, and the team's got to understand that. How do you get your people to buy into that?
Well, again, it's identifying the right folks at the beginning, but sometimes you don't have that luxury. You're inheriting a hotel or you're inheriting a leadership team already, and I think it's it's a lot to unpack there, but a big part of it is just living and walking the talk yourself. Um, but lead don't manage to me. What it means to me is that those folks on the leadership team are in it. They're right there when the tough times happen. They're right there when the lines are 3, 5, 6, 10 people deep. They're assisting. You really start to gain such a respect from your associates if you start to model that behavior by letting them see, you know what, I'm in this with you, and I can do it. As a general manager for so many years, you know, there are things that I didn't know how to do. I think general managers are some of the most skilled people on the planet, really, because you ask them um, to manage so many different disciplines and so many different types of people. Um, I think general managers have to know a little about a lot, and then you hire experts in each discipline. So, an example I use, I never knew, I never was able to conquer how to make a Starbucks. My hotels always had Starbucks, but that espresso machine, for whatever reason, really always intimidated me. It was the one thing in the hotel that is just, to this day, I still don't know how to use that thing. And I would see that line of people in the morning, and I just thought, man, I want to help. I want to
Yeah.
help. But I knew that if I got back behind the counter, I was just going to mess everything up. I was going to frustrate the associate. But what I could do was I could go up to the line, I could interact with the guest, I could thank them for being there, and I could
Right.
tell them, you know what, we're going to get, I know how important that cup of coffee is, and just make conversation, kind of take away from the fact that they're waiting in line. And that took some of the pressure off of the bistro attendant, that all these people were staring at them, right?
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
now they're interacting with me. So I think there are always things that you can do, even if you don't know how to do the job. And I don't know if that answered your question, but
No, it did. It
yeah.
did. I think that's exactly it. It's, there's a big difference between a leader and a manager, and the leader jumps in. The leader doesn't always have to lead from the front. They can lead from the back, from the side, shoulder to shoulder with your team.
Yeah.
You know, they're depending on you every day. You're depending on them, every day. Aggressive hospitality and your guests, customers having expectations. How do you manage those?
Well, aggressive hospitality, I love that phrase. That
I did too.
I talk about that obviously in my book. It's just this, this kind of like like just going into your lobby and just really being all over the customer experience. In
Yeah.
my book, I talk about my very first general manager. I'll give him a shout out, Brian Perkins. He's really who modeled aggressive hospitality for me. He was
Interesting.
always in the lobby at peak times, and he was, one minute he was helping at the front desk, the next minute he was over in the restaurant, seating people if he needed to, or clearing a table. He was a presence.
Yeah.
And so, aggressive hospitality to me is that just being all over it at all times.
Love it. Love it. All right, my friend, it's time for our lightning round. All right, here we go. Producer Danny's going to put 2 minutes on the clock, and so am I, but she's going to have it on the clock starting now. Team,
Work.
hotels,
Marriott.
labor,
Hard to find.
your favorite band, group, duo, or solo artist?
Goo Goo Dolls.
Interesting. Good answer. Favorite airport?
CVG, Cincinnati, hometown airport.
Favorite airline?
Southwest.
Aisle or window?
Aisle. I like to be able to get to the bathroom.
I agree. Favorite sport?
Baseball.
Tequila or whiskey?
Whiskey.
Favorite hotel or resort?
Ritz-Carlton.
Nice. You did that with 1:07 left on the clock. Congratulations.
That's fun.
So, thanks for coming in today. How did you come up with that title? And what was your process like writing the book? You had to draw on personal experiences. You had to draw on things that you saw that you may or may not have agreed with. Let's hear a little bit about that, please.
Well, thanks for coming in today. There's a real story behind that. It's about a young man named Jason. Jason worked for me when I was a front office manager. my first job in the hotel business. And Jason was a guest service representative, and at the time he was a hospitality student, and he was studying to go into hospitality, become a general manager. And so Jason would come to work every day with this insane amount of energy and excitement to be at work. He would seek me out no matter where I was when he would come in for a shift, find me, and he'd say, "Ryan, thanks for coming in today." And he'd give me this big handshake. And I joke all the time when I talk about Jason that I was convinced that he was pounding Red Bulls in the parking lot before he came in for a shift. You know, people that have that kind of energy, like they're just, everyone's right here, but they're like up here. Um, every day he brought this energy, and every day he would say, "Thanks for coming in today." He would do this with his guests. He would do it with his coworkers. Um, as I moved up to my career, I had an opportunity a couple years down the road to hire Jason when I became a assistant GM. I got a chance to hire him as my front office manager, and brought him on board, and same thing, like just brought that energy every day. "Thanks for coming in today," the handshake. And, it's funny, right? When he would say, "Thanks for coming in today," because I was his boss. So really, I should be thanking him, but he would thank me. Um, but about 3 months after we hired Jason to be my front office manager, I got a call in the middle of the night from his fiance, and she was letting me know that Jason wouldn't be in work the next day because he had been killed in a car accident. And it really wrecked me. At that point, Jason had become more than just someone who worked with me. He was a friend. And um, when it happened, I really really started to think about how much I was going to miss him saying, "Thanks for coming in today," every day. And so I decided I was going to honor him by doing just that. I was going to thank people for coming in every day, because I remembered how it made me feel when he would do it. It made me feel like I mattered. And that's a big deal in this industry. Every job matters. And I think the good leaders get that, especially now. I say all the time, every day we're one or two people away in our hotels from having a really good day or a really bad day. If someone calls off or doesn't show up, it's going to be a bad day. But if everybody shows up, it's going to be a better day. And so I think it's so important to show that genuine appreciation to the people that show up. And I do that by saying, "Hey, thanks for coming in today." And this has been almost, 15 years now that Jason passed away. And I still do "Thanks for coming in today." And I realize sometimes, or am I reminded sometimes, that this is unusual when I get a new employee, or I go somewhere and I thank someone for coming in, and I get a sarcastic response like, "Well, yeah, you scheduled me. Of course I'm here, or you pay me to be here." And I like to explain those moments. No, I really appreciate you being here, because every
Yeah.
job matters. And
Yes.
so, "Thanks for coming in today" is obviously the title of the book, because I open up talking about Jason, and how that showing of genuine appreciation is so crucial to creating these environments that
Yeah.
are going to ultimately create better customer experiences, which are ultimately going to help you have a better bottom line.
Absolutely. And when I worked for publicly held corporate America, I was very fond of telling the C-suite, and at one point in time, I was part of the C-suite, that you know dividends to the stockholders is not sustainable. It's got to be about stakeholders, and if you don't realize that, maybe you should move on to a new industry, because if we don't have them, we've got offices that are empty, phones that are ringing, and clients that are going to competitors. And it's the same thing with a hotel. You need everybody, and one of the things that I do, no matter, I don't care if it's an economy scale hotel or a destination or resort or an all inclusive resort. Every team member that I encounter, I look at them and I say hello, and I'll say thank you on my way out for a great stay, and it's all because of them.
It's huge.
They They formed the basis of a great experience and trip for me, and I thank them all the time.
Awesome.
Great book. Thank you very much. I saw in your background, looks like you've got an e-reader version of this plus the hard copy. Where can they get a copy of your book, Ryan?
Amazon's the best place to get it quickly, or you can visit my website, charlesryanminton.com. If you want a personalized copy, just reach out to me. I can send you one.
Perfect. Now, if somebody wants to engage with you and get you as a speaker, how can people get a hold of you, Ryan?
Same place, charlesryanminton.com is easy way to get with me. I'm also big on LinkedIn like you are, Craig. So hit me up on LinkedIn. I love to engage that way.
There you go. Thank you for joining the conversation. Ryan, open invitation. Anytime you want to come back,
Awesome.
Give me a call. We'll get you booked. If you want to write an article for the CLIC blog, we would love to publish it. I'm not going to ask for the one coming out in Newsweek. Was that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want any copyright problems. So, but yeah, we'd love to publish an article as well. So thank you for joining the conversation today.
Greg, thanks for coming in today.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
What a great episode. I got to tell you, I love us. I don't care what business you're in. Get a copy of Thanks for Coming In Today. Read it. Give it to your team. It's an easy read. It's a delightful book. It's going to give you food for thought. So please pick it up. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us. Thank you, our audience. I want to thank Red Roof Franchising and Chicago Title National Commercial Services Group for bringing you the show today. This has been just outstanding, all the leaders that we get. And again, thank you to Red Roof Franchising and Chicago Title for being a part of this. So they're phenomenal. Give them a call. Thank you, our audience. We'll be back soon with another episode, but remember to subscribe and ring that bell, smash that bell on our YouTube channel. You can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. Join Glenn Hausman and I on Thursdays for 3 Minute Thursday. You never know what we're going to talk about. Neither do we. That's part of the fun. And then Friday Night Audit, Glenn and I, and guests every Friday for an hour or so. Join us there as well. And you can find that on the No Vacancy YouTube channel and the Checkout California YouTube channel as well. Thank you again for joining us. Remember to be kind, share your knowledge. Now go be amazing.